Hi, this is Beverly Cole, and I am here in my OpenOffice Draw program to share with you how to make the pieces for a card. So we have the background paper here, we have the next layer with the falling leaves and the sentiment, and then these three leaves are here to be attached later. But I also didn't do these. After I printed this out, I decided to use a pumpkin instead. So we are going to delete these. Just click on hit delete on my keyboard and insert instead a picture from file of, let's have those come up here. This is my file, and Autumn's Gifts, I'm going to use the pumpkin. So this is the PNG of the pumpkin. And I'm going to move it down to this corner, and then I'm going to hold my shift key and I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Now the nice thing is that you can play around with these to make sure you have the right size for everything. And I'm also going to flip right, this is the right, click the right button on my mouse, flip horizontally, and that pumpkin, I think that's a good size, so we'll put it right here and then print that out. Now I'm going to show you in another document how I did the entire thing. So the first thing that I do is format my page so that all the borders are 1/4 inch, so that would be 0.25, and you just scroll down till you get 0.25. Or you can go in here and backspace and put 0.25. Okay, so now you can see all my borders are 0.25 or 1/4 inch. So down here, you'll see that you can measure the size of, well, let me show you. You can measure this. I'm going to start by inserting the background paper. And the challenge coming up on our challenge blog this coming month, the 21st of October 2019, is patterned paper. So if you don't have to use my patterned paper, but of course I would love it if you did. So now we're going to choose the background paper, and the one that I decided to use was the red distressed leaves. And there we are. Is that the one I used? Let me just check my other picture. Oh no, I can see I did not. No, it's the wrong one. So I can change it by just leaving it here with the green boxes around it and go back to insert picture from file. And what it'll do is it will replace that paper. Red leaves, that's what I use. So watch, I changed it and it will just replace. See? Now I want to make this smaller, but I don't want to crop it. I want the leaves to actually get smaller. So as I hold down my left mouse button and my shift key, this will stay at the same measurements, and I want it to be four and a quarter by 5.5. Now if you look down here, right here, this is giving, this is giving me the measurements right here. 4 1/4 by 5 1/4, 5 1/2 is what I want. I can watch this all day, or I can do this and you'll see that those numbers change as I change the size. Another way to change that though is to go up here to format, down to position and size. And I'm not worried about the position. That's easy to change. But here, I can click, I can either go up and down with this right here, or I can go in here and just backspace, and that's going to do width 4 1/4, and this one we want 5 1/2. Oops. that's not 5 1/2. 550 would be 5 1/2. Okay, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, right? I'm not worried about keeping the ratio. I want it to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So here is my paper, and you can see down here 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now I can move this where I need to, and there's my background paper. Now I do notice that on this one, the original, I'll show you. See, my page is in landscape mode, and I need to change this one. So I'm going to go up here. Well, we'll unclick that. Up here, and we're going to format page. When you format page, you can click right here to landscape, and we'll leave the measurements at 11 by 8 1/2. And there we go. So I want to move that right up into that corner. I can use the arrows on my keyboard to do that. Now it's perfectly up in that corner. Now I need to make the second piece, which is right here, which I put together myself. And I did this because if I cut out all these little leaves, that's a lot of cutting, and there's a lot of intricate lines here. So it was easier to just have them be printed. So what we're going to do is go back to this page and insert picture from file, and again we're going to go to the Autumn Gifts paper pack, and this is the background I used. Now that comes up, and I need to format that one, so I'm going to go to Format, Position and Size, and this one we want to be 1/2 inch smaller on both sides, which would be 3.75 or 3 3/4. Not 7, 3 3 3/4 by 5. Okay, and there it is. So now I can just put that right here, and we're going to play around with this one for a little while. So, you see how big I made this one? Four 3/4. Okay, I made it. Oh no, that's right, because I used another piece of. I forgot. I need to make this smaller because we're going to put a piece of cardstock between these two layers. So this actually has to be smaller. So let's go back, and we'll change this to 3.5. By 4.75. So I made it a 1/4 inch smaller on each side to compensate for that layer that's going to go in between. Okay, now on this layer we're going to add some leaves. So we're going to insert a picture from the file, and we're going to go back to Gifts, and we're going to click on the PNG aspen leaf, double click, and it will come up here, and you're going to make this smaller by holding down the Shift key, and we'll make it small and bring it. I'm going to move this down because I want to be able to put some of the leaves off the edge. Now when I make this one, it's about here. I turned it, and made it smaller. Okay, put it about here. Click off. But now we can also click on this leaf. Click on the leaf. There we go. Control copy, control print, and I made 2 more. So one here, and we'll put one down here. This one I want bigger, so hold the Shift key. Whoops! Hold the Shift key down. Make it bigger. This one, I'm gonna flip vertically and move it, and we will make that one a little bigger, and this one I'm going to make smaller. Okay, so that looks like they're falling, see? Then you go ahead and do the same thing with all of your leaves until you have them where you want them. You can also I'm going to show you how we remove them from the edges. Okay, so here's the oak leaf. I'm going to put him up here, make him much smaller by holding down my shift key. Okay, and copy, control print, I have two more. Move one down this way, flip it vertically, and then flip it horizontally, and I'm going to make it bigger. Right here, I want it to be pretty big, because compared to that other leaf, it should be bigger. Okay, and then this one is going to be there, and then the other one, you put here, turn it, and make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Now, even though in the last portion, I did show you how to add the leaves, I made some mistakes, and so I'm going to use this image to show you how to crop your image after you add the leaves. So this was saved. You can save it as a JPEG, or which you'd export from this, or just save it as a file in OpenOffice, and that's what I did here. And then I opened it up, and as you can see, this is one huge image now. I cannot separate anything, and it has all this white around it as well. So with the little green boxes around the whole image, we will crop the entire image. So we're just going to hit crop, and then you crop it to size. And I'm going to make a little bit of a oopsie here on purpose, make it too big just to show you what you can do if you don't do it right the first time. So then click off, and you have your image, but see how the leaves are hanging off? So we're going to click on it again and just go to crop image, and then crop it until it looks right. Click off, and there you go. Now I'm going to turn the page to landscape. So we go to format, and then in format, we go to page, and we just change to landscape. And on this page, I haven't made the margins a 1/4 inch. It doesn't matter for this card really, because we're not going to need extra space. Okay, so there's our piece, and now we will go ahead and return to where we left off in the last portion. We're going to do it again, so it's going to be a little repeat for you, but that's okay. We're going to go to make this the right size, so to 3.75 by 5, 3 3/4 by 5, and you can see that here. And if you look at the bottom of the page, it will change there as well. Hello, 5. There we go. And okay, and so this is 3 3/4 by 5 1/2, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen. And now we're going to go ahead and add that background paper again. Oh, we want the papers. There we are. And pick the red leaves background paper. Oops, now I made the mistake because I left my little green markers around the edge. If you leave the little green markers, then you're going to replace the picture. So make sure you are clicked off of your image to put another one in. There we go. Now this one will make 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then we know that this one is the correct size for our card. Automatically. So we can move that over. We're going to resize. Yes, that's right. I remembered that all of a sudden this has to be a bit smaller because I am adding that middle piece of cardstock between the two layers. So it needs to be 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. There we go. And you can see it here that it's going to fit nicely. Because after we do some fancy things to that background paper, that red one, it's going to be gorgeous, and you're not going to want to have it completely covered up. Now we're going to add our sentiment. Go back to the stamp set. and it's a PNG image only, so that's not a problem. You just pick the PNG. You don't have to choose from a JPEG and PNG, just a PNG. Hold your Shift key down to make it the right size so it doesn't change shape, and move it where you want it. Okay, now it's a little bit smaller. And move it where I want it. Whoops, you gotta make sure you click on the right image. When they're layered, it gets a little tricky. But eventually you get it. And move it over. Okay, and now we're just gonna add our pumpkin. My image, I moved it around a little, so I'm just putting it back in place. And then the pumpkin. Okay, so we are repeating what I showed you at the beginning and then going on from there to show you, whoops, I did it again. You have got to click off your image. There, I was clicked on the card for some reason. And now we'll add the pumpkin. PNG, open, and resize it to fit. And hold your Shift key when you do that so the pumpkin stays round. And if you don't hold the Shift key, it will change the shape of your pumpkin, which is fine if that's what you want to do. And I flipped it horizontally, and I'll put it here so that we can cut that out, print it and cut it out and use it that way. And now we'll go on to the glitter and embossing powder. I printed this out on regular cardstock. This is my Autumn Gifts paper pack, which is available in my Etsy shop called TheArtsystamperShop, all one word. And I am trimming it out on my paper trimmer, nice and easy to do. And if you don't know how to print these things out, I have videos showing how to use OpenOffice, which is the program that I use for layering my digitals. Okay, so this is cut out now, and also we will cut out this piece, and this is going to be matted on that background piece of cardstock. So this one is measured, let's see, I'm gonna check it on my board, see if I just can't remember offhand what it was. This is 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. So when we layer them, they will look like this, but they're gonna look better than that because we're gonna do some fun stuff with it. Let me just move my stuff out of the way here. Now we're going to work the background piece. I'm going to put into this Dries embossing folder, and I want it so that the design is raised, so I've got to make sure I put it the right way. I get a little bit turned around when I do this. I do believe this will be it. Okay, right, with the Dries name on the top. So it's going to emboss, and I'm going to do that and come right back. So we have this right here embossed. So this is going to be a double embossing technique, dry and heat embossing. So now if you can see, it's got that texture, and that's sweet by itself. It's really cute. I'm going to take my, where did I put it? Layer upon layer of stuff. Oh, there it's hiding. Where are you? Where are you? There it is. Wrong dish. Okay, looking for my anti-static pad. I want to go over the entire card with that. And then I'm going to hit this with clear embossing ink. Now that powder should have gotten into all the nooks and crannies on this card, so that this embossing ink, I only want it on the top, the raised areas. the background. So I want to give it a good inking with the clear embossing ink, and I'm using Versamark. Okay, then we're going to shift this into a coffee filter and hit it with some of the clear embossing powder. And as you guys know, I keep my clear in a big container. You get the big size and you keep it in a big container. And I'm just going to dump it. Well, actually, we'll do this right over the container. Wow, how about that? And I love vintage things, so I have a really old little spoon here, which is by Tupperware. And I use this spoon to feed all my kids. It's got the little thing on the side where you can hook it on the dish. It's so cute. Had it forever. And when I say forever, I mean forever. Then we'll heat emboss this. Okay. So now we have this piece. Looks so pretty. Doesn't it look awesome? So what I want to do now is I want to use a little bit of a metallic around the edges. So I've decided I want to add some Candlelight embossing powder. Just put my clear away here. And what I want to do with this is we're just going to go around the edges to kind of give it that framed look. And I'm just going to hit the whole center, the whole thing with my anti-static pad again. And then some embossing ink. But I'm only going to do the edges. So I'm kind of just doing the edges, kind of random tapping, you know, just around the edges like this. Candlelight Cosmic Opaque. Just around the edges. And I like to get messy, so you're going to see me get messy. All right. Woo. Okay. Oh, we have a little. It's subtle. Maybe do it again. Yeah, that's pretty. And again, just around the edges. Okay. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that a pretty color? Oh my gosh. We will heat emboss this. That's gorgeous. Oh, that's so, so pretty. All right, so the center is where this will go. So you see our beautiful background now. Look how pretty that is. Okay, so with this one now, I'm going to ink my edges. And let's see, what color do we want? I think, I want one that's going to kind of go with that background. So that would probably be frayed burlap. Let's try that. How does that look? Oh yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's very pretty. Okay, so we're inking the edges. And also from the glass mat, you can come up on the edges and bring your color in. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I'm just gonna go right into the center to blend it. Okay. I'm gonna use my precision glue pen here. And we can clean that up. And we will just put some clear on these leaves. I did. Put some clear embossing powder on the leaves, and I keep a jar in here in case I want to take a bunch of this with me somewhere and not carry the entire big container. Dump that off. Now this is glue, so it's going to take a little longer. So here we go. Okay, so now we're going to work on the main part of this, our focal point, and we're going to use some more ink, which I have right here, the Distress Oxide Frayed Burlap. I'm just gonna turn this over and do all the edges. And that's how I make sure I get my edges covered without, you know, distressing the whole front of my pumpkin. But then I also want to do just the edges of the pumpkin. Help it stand out a bit from the background. So we're left with this, and this will be layered on here. Wink. And I don't know, just see. These are the deeper areas, so maybe a deeper color. Let's see what we can find in our... Okay, I'm just going to let that dry a bit. Let's see, let's put it on the stem too. I'm going to put it up the side here where it's darker. Okay, and maybe just a line of it here. Okay. So this time I dried the glue ahead of time, and I'm going to add some embossing powder to this, and we're going to use a darker color. So I'm looking here, and I think I will use Bronze Rose. That sounds pretty. It sounds like it might really be pretty on here. So we will just dump the Bronze Rose. Bronze Rose, what a name. Just sounds so metallic and yet like a rosy color. Okay, so there it is. Okay. And remember, I do artsy embossing and glitter work. So there may be some even on the entire background. I try not to be too fussy, you know, and perfect. It just gives it an artsy look. Oh my goodness. That is so pretty. Woo. Okay, so we're going to attach that right there. I want to add a little bit more of the Distress Oxide Frayed Burlap. And when you add it over this embossing, the leaves will resist the color. So we're going to do this all around the edge with the frayed burlap. And I'm not going to go near my sentiment. Just around the leaves. Just, well, you don't even need it to be wet. You're just going to buff away the color from the leaves that are covered in the embossing powder. And there we go. So then we're going to layer that here. Oh, I've got this piece of glitter black cardstock, which you could make yourself with your glitter, but this piece is already made, so I'm just going to layer that. So I'm using some Terrific tape on every layer, just removing the papers here, because the Terrific tape, which is terrible, what I mean is tear, T-E-A-R-able, and you don't have to cut it. It's super sticky, so it's gonna hold these embossed pieces. Here's my background. Here's my glitter paper, which I start at the top corner, make sure I get my dimensions correct, and press. Beautiful. And then this piece will go centered on that. Beautiful. And then I put some dimensionals on the back of my pumpkin. Okay, now there's my pumpkin. And I'm going to put my pumpkin all over the edges here. You can see it right there on an angle. Okay, and that covers up some of the overspill from that dripping embossing ink powder, but it doesn't matter. So here's my card. And I will dress it up a bit, and I will end with a picture for you.